Tonight on News 5 Live, another person recovers from COVID-19 and only 2 active cases remain. Random testing has begun. Around the country, most businesses are now open, but the curfew hours are still in place. We head to downtown Belize City to capture the hustle and bustle, but it was not business as usual. An Orange Walk man is fatally stabbed. And also in Orange Walk, a man is charged in a 2017 brutal murder of an elderly man inside his small store. A family of 4 was busted while illegally crossing over from Mexico. An ongoing rivalry between 2 groups in Dangriga ends in another shooting incident. And a house and its contents were completely destroyed by fire over the weekend. Details of these stories and more coming up in tonight's newscast. evening. Welcome to News 5 Live from Monday, May 4th. I am Marlene Cuellar. The weekend ended in tragedy for the family of a taximan in the north. Matthias Alpuche was stabbed to death by his passenger in the Pettsville area of Orange Walk. Prior to his savage stabbing, he had visited with his estranged wife and set out to work. He did not live long as he was attacked inside his car. There are witnesses to the murder, but a search of the area was greatly inhibited by the darkness of Sunday night. Here is News 5's Hipólito Novello with this report.
Before his murder, 54-year-old Matthias Alpuche spent a Sunday afternoon with his estranged wife and children. This is the last picture of him when he was alive. This picture shows blood spatters on his recently rented gray Toyota Camry taxi in which he was murdered. It was a little before 6 o'clock on Sunday evening that residents of the Pettville area of Honeycamp Road witnessed the murderer flee from the scene.
We say the taxi car, they come and made a swerve, they go in and out through the bushes, look like he made a struggle. I don't know if they made a struggle for the wheel or if they made done stab here and thing. And then they had what can truck on the other side of the road, and then the taxi car may almost crashed the truck. That when we see that the taxi man come out from the car and he gone behind his car on the trunk and he take out the bike and he fling the bike and the bike almost touched the fence. And then that when we see that the young boy, because there was a young boy, he come out from the back of the car, from the back seat, and he take the bike and we holler at he, we holler because we women want to make them know that we just say that we holler at the taxi man then because we want to make him know that we just say that he fling the bike, but we never know that taxi man may injured. So then afterwards the boy hurry gun jump on the bike and he gone fast.
Alpuche returned to his taxi and continued driving. After a few yards, the taxi stopped. Alpuche opened the door and yelled for help. He had been stabbed several times and was bleeding profusely.
And I see the man still breathe, but he up on the right hand side, the lean like that. And I noticed he had a stab wound on the neck, on the chin up here, but he bleed out. I say all his shirt full up of blood and thing. But I never know he had more stab wounds. So we start call police, but nobody made the answer, and we try get numbers and nothing till we finally get the police, and the man still made a breathe, like he had was stable breathing. But then he stopped for like 4 minutes and then he start breathe again. And then that when I say he's still alive, so when the police reach, we tell the police make it care up, make it rush up, make them not they investigate nothing, make they just care he.
Alpuche was rushed to the Northern Regional Hospital. He had lost a lot of blood. His fate was grim, and by 6:25, the doctor pronounced him dead. A manhunt for the young murderer ensued, with residents and police searching the bushes.
He had a light skin complexion then. He not dark, but he no white either. He had a light skin complexion. He had like 5'6", 5'7", I assume. And he have curly hair. He short, but he yellow from the tips, yellow. And he had a red shirt when I see he had a red shirt. And he had I'm not sure if he had a bag, but I know when my uncle and them see he done change the shirt, and he had the red shirt pan the neck, he tie pan the neck, and he made right there stand up pan the bush, and the bike made up on the side. But when he said that they reverse back, that when he hurry he made done gone in because he said that them look for he. But then yeah, that's how the boy look. He maga, he not fat, he maga and he kind of tall, 5'6", 5'7", I assume. And he look young. I would have said maybe 21, 22. So then follow the boy on a private vehicle to try to find him at the bushes and thing. And then I see he, but by the time they come back for tell the police where the boy there, the boy had done gone in. But how we call all of the neighbors round, all of them they on the alert about the boy. So then the neighbor called we, they said that the boy just passed through back there. That when my cousin come run back here, they holler that they see the boy back here on our land by the bamboos and the coconut. So then the police come back and they go and find him, and we hear a gunshot, but the gunshot and never the police that the neighbor will see the boy they run back. So
the setting sun left the residents at a disadvantage. The murderer escaped, leaving Alpuche's estranged wife, Lourdes Cocom, with many questions.
Yesterday, 5:20.
Okay. Where was he? He was here?
He was here, right here at my house.
So he was just eating, hanging out with...
Yeah, he was hanging right here with his granddaughters and his 2 daughters.
He ever come to you and tell you that he had any beef with anybody, any fight or argument with anybody?
No, He didn't tell me nothing. He just came and he said it's too slow for the taxi. And he came and right here and I relaxed. Then he sit right over there and he said that he's going.
How long was he running taxi? Was that something recently? Or?
Yes, recently, like Thursday he start. Last week Thursday he start.
Okay. Why would anyone want to?
I really don't know.
And investigators at this point don't know either. The motive has not been established and a suspect has not been identified.
Police are conducting an investigation into this matter at this time. We also know that he does his taxi runs from the Queen Victoria Avenue area, somewhere in the vicinity of the town hall. So we are on the ground at this time since the incident, still on the ground, trying to continue with the investigation. At this time, we do not have any suspect in our custody, and we do not have a motive as yet.
Was there a robbery element?
We do not know at this point in time whether or not anything was stolen from him.
While police continued their investigation, Alpuche's longtime friend Maria Perez told News 5 that the trial farm taximan seemed stressed before his passing. Perez rented a room to Alpuche at 5 p.m. every day he would arrive, but he failed to do so on Sunday.
Dijo a mi hija que cuando él fue a buscar el hielo, él estaba bien estresado. Mi hija sí puede decir que ella, porque ella lo vio, ella estaba lavando. Estaba bien estresado, dice, tenía sus ojos rojos y agarró un machete y cortó el hielo. Y le dijo a la niña, jálate de acá porque no me gusta gente metida, le dijo. O quieres que te planasee, le dijo a la niña. Por eso ella se dio cuenta que él estaba bien molesto. No, ni me dio la cara. Cuando él vino, él no me dio la cara a mí. Cada día a las 5 venía. A las 5 él dice que ya se vino, ¿por qué? Por esto, por esas cosas que están pasando. Ajá, pero pasó a las 5, pasó a las 6 y no vino.
What would you want to say to the person who did it?
That I can't say nothing. I leave it to Jesus.
Reporting for News 5, Hipólito Novello.
A family of 4, including 2 minors, was busted over the weekend for defying the most severe piece of recent law to come into effect during the state of emergency. Despite the new measures going into the Labor Day weekend, both parents, along with their children, illegally crossed over into Mexico, where the state of Quintana Roo is experiencing a rash of COVID-19 cases. Upon their return across the Rio Hondo River, the family was met by law enforcement officers who took them into custody. As of May 1st, the penalty for anyone found crossing into Belize illegally is a $5,000 fine, as well as a 3-month stint at the Belize Central Prison. While the children have been placed in mandatory quarantine, their parents were scheduled to appear before the magistrate's court in Corozal today, where they'd face criminal charges. If convicted, the couple will be quarantined for 21 days prior to being incarcerated.
When it comes to persons who enter the country illegally, there is absolutely no room for negotiation where they are concerned. As far as I see it, when they do that, they put our entire country at risk. Now, going back to the video you spoke about, I observed on social media people querying, but we saw 4, but why only 2 get arrested? Yes, 4 persons came, but 2 were minors, and 2 were adults. The 2 adults are the parents of the minors. We cannot charge a minor if the parents bring them because they are following their parents. And so only the 2 parents were charged. Now, the law is clear. There is absolutely no room for discretion where Ministry of Health is concerned in terms of ensuring that these people go into mandatory quarantine. And so The parents are still in police custody. They will be going to court today. By virtue of the law, if they were to plead guilty, they'll be sentenced to 3 months imprisonment. But can they go directly to prison? The answer is no. So even before they go to prison, they would have to undergo the 21 days quarantine, starting from the day when they were found. And if after the 21 days they do not develop symptoms or test positive, then they can go to prison. In terms of the 2 children now, they were placed in mandatory quarantine for the 21 days. So if it is that the parents should plead not guilty and the court were to grant them bail, they will not go home. They should go directly into mandatory quarantine at their expense. And this is something that we must be extremely harsh with so that the message can be sent to people: do not enter this country illegally.
One other person was charged with violating the state of emergency at the northern border. The woman will be facing similar penalties and fines. This morning, there was far more movement in the city and around the country as almost all businesses are now open, and so did government offices and statutory boards. But there is still a curfew in place from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. and 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. for minors. But under the new normal, the use of face masks is a must, and persons must stand 6 feet apart while in public, which is considered a safe distance in case the nearby person is infected with COVID-19. So while shutters were up on Albert Street, business is just about to jump start. Here's News 5's Dwayne Moody with this report.
In downtown Albert and Regent Streets in Belize City, the economic hub of the old capital, it appeared to be business as usual after about 6 weeks of lockdown. There was a lot of traffic on the streets when compared to weeks ago, and many wore masks while others stood in queues outside banks, retail stores and elsewhere, adhering to the 6 feet rule of social distancing. A state of emergency remains in place, but there has been an ease on restrictions in an effort to reopen the economy.
And the NOC and the government has decided to relax the SI even more from Friday, because we think we have it under control internally in the country to a certain extent so far. The Minister of Health informed me this morning that we only have 2 active cases remaining, and they're within the same family. So we are confident that we can expand the local economy, the internal economy, a little bit more in a safe way. LPG suppliers, bakeries, markets, 5 to 7 at night. All other businesses can now open from 8 in the morning till 7 at night. Is that clear?
That clarification comes after a hiccup over the weekend when well-known fabric store Mikado was closed down by officers for not being authorized to open. And by 11 o'clock, the business had to shut its doors. Today, it was open with its entire complement of staff. Owner Umesh Mahitani says that no revenue was coming in, so they had to send their staff home with half pay. He maintains that they are providing a service, especially during this time.
I think they were not quite sure of whether we should have opened or not, but we had a huge demand for fabric. And so we opened up on Saturday, and then we had to close around 11 o'clock or 11:30 thereabouts, and we went about our merry way, and we're open again today, and the same faithful customers, which we always have, came back again today to purchase what they needed.
Talk to us about how important this is, the service that you guys provide to the public.
Well, I'm glad you said service, because that's what it is. It's not like people are buying a lot of fabric. It's a lot of people buying a little bit of fabric, right? So it goes a long way for people. If you buy a yard, you could almost make about 20 masks. So people will buy about 3 yards, one for the front, one for the back, and a little filter in the middle. And with 3 yards, you could make about 32 masks.
Julie McCord, the owner of Julie Mango Designs, has been affected by the SOE. She's unable to purchase fabric from neighboring Cheddar Mall in Melchor and was one of the first to access material from Mikado over the weekend. While there have been a number of cancellations for prom and wedding dresses, she has resorted to making masks to generate income. Today she was back at the fabric store to purchase material to meet the demands of clients.
I tried to use the crisis as a next means of opportunity. I mean, I lost business from wedding dresses and prom dresses, but then I had to make up for it with the mask. But in order to, I would say, separate myself from other people making masks, I did it slightly differently. I had custom prints on mine, and I had matching head ties. I was receiving a lot of orders, but I was unable to make them, to produce them, because I did not have enough fabric. And then the need for mask, well, I mean, not the need, the necessity for the mask is very important. So as soon as they told me that they were going to be opening, I was probably one of the first ones in line.
Most businesses are being allowed to open between non-curfew hours, including cosmetic stores, clothing stores, and others. They are, however, to exercise social distancing guidelines for customers and employees, and patrons should wear masks at all times. Cellular World reopened its doors today at branches countrywide, and they're also adding a new line to its stock. Cellular World is now selling FDA-approved masks and other protective equipment.
We are cognizant of the fact that communication is key in bringing back a crisis. No? What we did is we adapted quickly enough to at least try to do some online. We were using external approved couriers, delivery services, and we tried to make it our best for people to access the kind of products that we had. But we had to send staff home. I mean, we tried our best to hold on to everyone, and we have a lot of skilled, trained employees that we can't just replace that easily. So it was tough, but we had to try to pull through the best we can. No? To kind of move forward, we now carry a full line of coronavirus COVID protection equipment. We have FDA-approved masks, thermometers. We have, gloves, face shields. This will basically become the new accessories of life. So we figured to continue to survive, we need to kind of divert a little bit and keep that kind of stuff. Another thing we're adamant about is online shopping. That avoids big crowds in the stores, and we get it to you versus you coming in and risking yourself. We have set guidelines that we follow to get the product to you. So that's going to be again a new way of life going forward, and we really hope that people embrace that.
Dwayne Moody for News 5.
The reopening of some businesses started on Saturday morning following the announcement of the new statutory instrument. Many stores in downtown Belize City opened their doors after weeks of closure, but no sooner than they had begun serving their customers in the downtown area of the city, police officers arrived to shut them down. There seemed to have been some confusion about businesses that were allowed to reopen, including the popular Mikado store, as opposed to those that are to remain closed until further notice. At least 2 business establishments elsewhere in the country were shut down and their proprietors arrested and charged for operating a bar.
On the 2nd of May, we have a number of business establishments that were open on Albert Street that were not supposed to be opened, and we quickly closed them down. There was some confusion on their part, and so we quickly closed them down and told them that they could not open because the law did not permit them. But some adjustment was made since then to the law, and so they were allowed to open this morning. But again, we continue to go after the business establishments that open, that should not be opened. And I can tell you that many of these establishments are owned by Asian business persons, and a few owned by Belizeans. But it doesn't matter for us. Once it is that you are open and you should not be open, you will be arrested and charged.
The good news tonight is that there are no new confirmed cases of COVID-19 for 21 days consecutively. On Sunday, another patient recovered from the virus after having twice tested negative since contracting the disease. It is expected that the 2 remaining active cases will be cleared by midweek. They are a man and a woman from the same household. This initial cycle of the virus has been contained, and the country remains at stage 1, with a state of emergency still in place. But health officials are cautioning that there should be no comfort in the 0 new cases, because a second or third wave cannot be ruled out. Since the virus was confirmed in Belize, it peaked at 18 infections, inducing 2 deaths, but the economic toll is devastating and the unemployment lines have grown longer and longer. Late this evening, the Director of Health Services, Dr. Marvin Manzanero, explained that while this is a landmark, we are not yet out of the woods.
We had 18 cases, as we all know, confirmed. 2 patients unfortunately died, which meant we had 15 out of those. We have 1 more recovered, you are right, and we have 2 that are still considered to be active cases. We are anticipating that these 2 persons would be deemed to have recovered later on this week.
Okay. Sir, talk to us about how the effectiveness of certain decisions that you guys had put in place and how we got to this point.
Well, I think it's diminished effort, but I think it's the overall collective decisions that the country has taken. We never really transitioned, as we have said, from a stage 1 to a stage 2 in terms of the epidemic for the Belize context. But we did take measures as a country as if we were in a stage 3 community ongoing transmission. So I think that was effective. As we eventually start to open up internally, at least, I think those same measures will now need to take place.
Director of Health Services Dr. Marvin Manzanero also told News 5 that random testing began over the weekend for frontline workers and other persons. He confirms that the ministry is in receipt of 14 ventilators and several test kits in its fight against COVID-19. Among those screened in the random selection are those persons who illegally crossed into the country in the north.
Some elements of that have already happened, particularly with frontline workers in the Belize district. Through the weekend, we found people randomly, for example, people who were caught entering illegally at both some in Placencia, some up north. Those are randomly swabbed, so those you can consider to be random sampling. What we have done is, as an epidemiology unit, we have identified who can be more at-risk population. And then, of course, because you can't go and test everybody, the intention is to do random sample taking from these populations. Let's say you have 422 doctors. A random sample would be maybe 10% of those distributed across the country. So you swap 40 to 42 doctors, to give an example. So you have to look at the patient population of each of these frontline workers and then randomly take out samples from them because we are not having people that are critically ill. We are no longer envisioning doing testing every single day. We will do a map, a critical calendar with specific times and dates when tests will be done or run by Central Medical Lab, because we will understand that the health system starts to also open up and go back to doing routine activities now with COVID-19 added to it. So for example, I don't think we're running any specific tests today. We are pooling samples that are coming in from the country. Those are prepared, and those will more than likely be run tomorrow.
Okay, just to clarify, sir, we have the requisite agents and reagents and what have you to do the test?
Yes, we got another 8 packs of reagents on last week, Wednesday. So we have to be running those reactions. It doesn't mean that we are going to use all of them in random sampling, because the random sampling is not going to last forever. You just need to prepare and make sure you don't have any active case. We will continue to test all those who are severe acute respiratory illnesses, those having influenza-like illnesses. Those will be routinely swabbed. So we have the reagents for now. Our ventilators have also arrived. We got 14 more ventilators that arrived last week. We are still pending the ventilators from Bowen and Bowen.
Coming up, 2 persons are shot in Dangriga, and a BDF soldier dies in an accident while on COVID-19 patrol. Just before the 8 o'clock curfew on Sunday night, gunshots rang out in the Bengusha area of Dangriga. When the shooting subsided, a man and a woman had both been injured. Luwani and Ernest Mena were attacked in what police say was a gang-related incident. It is the second shooting within the past 2 weeks that has been attributed to an ongoing row between two groups in that community. This morning, Assistant Commissioner of Police Joseph Maivet gave the details of the shooting. But first, here is a report from Harry Arzu from Southern Media in Dangriga.
62-year-old Ernest Francis Mena, along with his son, 38-year-old Luani Mena, each sustained a gunshot wound as a result of a shooting incident that occurred here last night. At about 7:45 p.m., both men were sitting on the veranda of Ernest's house, located on 1164 Penn Road in the Bangladesh area of Dangriga, when they were fired upon by a gunman. As a result, Ernest received a gunshot injury to his shin of his left foot, while his son was shot to his right arm. Ernest told Southern Belize media that about 5 to 6 shots were unleashed upon them, and thereafter the gunman made good his escape. He explains. Could you tell us your name?
My name is Ernest Francisco Mena.
What are you?
I'm 62 years old.
All right. Tell us what happened here last night.
Well, last night I was sitting on my veranda about 7:45, or maybe a little bit earlier. Me and my son, my Kamala wife was baking his supper to take, and I called him, and he came and we sit down there. You know, we were sitting down, so bye by the meter, and he got shot at his right hand, and I got shot at my left foot.
Was it what, one gunman or two?
Well, one gunman.
How many shots you heard fired?
Well, I hear 5 or 6 shots.
And your son? What's the name of your son?
Luani Mena.
What does he do?
Well, he's a carpenter. He the first one got shot. Then when the bullet come to me and just mess up my bike. Well, I just feel when the bullet burned my foot. Right, I said, I get shot too. And when I noticed my foot full of blood, and I run, and I call it, I run and say, I get shot. And from there I say, more blood, and to call 911. They come in, 2 vehicles come, jump in and one and try to trail the man who do the shooting. But by the time I say, my son is bleeding and in pain, so I carry straight to the hospital.
So your son gets shot where?
Right hand.
Right arm.
Yeah.
So his injuries, could you describe it? Was it serious?
Well, you know serious.
It was bleeding.
Yeah, but he was bleeding and it bleed hard.
Did you stay overnight or
no? Yeah, I get to treat me and release me.
Anybody have any you have problem with such individual that want to come and attack you?
Well, so far I don't have problem with nobody in Dangriga, right? From the time I come from Orange Walk, 2011, I don't have problem with nobody. I just be nice to people at Dangriga and have no enemy at Dangriga.
Police were called to the area where they processed the scene and are now investigating this latest incident. In addition, there are reports of another shooting incident that occurred here yesterday, but we were told that no one was injured.
Commissioner of Police Chester Williams vowed that stiffer measures will be taken to quell tensions between the warring factions.
On yesterday's date, sometime around 7:50 p.m., Dangriga police were called to Yampa Street in Dangriga town, where they observed Luani Mena, 35 years, of said address, along with Ernest Mena, with apparent gunshot injuries. They were transported to the Southern Regional Hospital, where they have since been treated, and both have been released. What the police know so far is that both persons were on the veranda when a dark complexion male person came from behind the house who was masked, and he fired several shots in their direction, which caused injuries to both persons. I can say that yes, indeed, there have been a number of incidents, a few which have gone unreported, but yes, indeed, we were also looking at the possibility that it could or may have been a retaliation. The police have also put measures in place to address this issue, and for some time now, or at least for over the last 2 weeks, we have been trying to seek out several players whom we believe have been involved in the different incidents in Dangriga in order to bring them in for investigative purposes and see where charges can be levied against those persons.
Crime-wise, Dangriga is our problem. And I have been watching and been in dialogue with the Southern Regional Commander to see what is it they're doing in Dangriga, why they're not able to get a handle on these two groups that seemingly believe that they own Dangriga. And it would appear to me that from a law enforcement standpoint, enough is not being done. And so I had another talk this morning with the commander. And I have also spoken to Mr. Vidal, who is Commander Operations, and have given directives in terms of what I want to see done in Dangriga to be able to bring some sense of security back to the people of Dangriga. And so they will see some changes in terms of the police approach to these gang members in Dangriga, and we will come down hard on them, and who want to cry foul can cry foul. But when we have people who believe that they can behave like animal and live among us, and we must pet them up and pamper them, it is not going to happen.
A Belize Defense Force soldier lost his life in a traffic accident on Friday evening in the Corozal district. 8 other persons who were traveling in the Isuzu pickup truck along with him suffered varying degrees of injury when the vehicle overturned shortly after rounding a curve near Consejo village. Despite being rushed to the Corozal Community Hospital by another vehicle carrying BDF soldiers, Priestley Rancharan did not survive the incident. Police say that the men were heading westward from Consejo.
On Friday, sometime around 4:30 p.m., Corozal police were called to the scene of an accident on the Consejo Road in Corozal district, where upon arrival they saw a gold in color D-Max pickup with government license plate extensively damaged and on its side. What the police know so far is that the vehicle at the time was being driven by one Priestley Rancharan, 27 years, BDF soldier, and he was accompanied at the time by 8 other persons, and they were westbound coming from the direction of Consejo village when he apparently lost control of the vehicle after just coming off a curve and causing the vehicle to overturn several times. Several of the other passengers received varying degree of injuries. However, none of the other injuries seem to have been that serious as his injuries, being that he was not on the scene on the arrival of the police. He was already at the Corozal Community Hospital receiving treatment, where he succumbed to his injuries whilst undergoing those treatments.
Are you all aware? I know there's a very sharp curve coming out of Consejo. I believe that was probably it, but was speed a factor? Do you all know?
At this point in time, no, we do not know. We were unable to ascertain that. What we do know, though, that another vehicle occupied by BDF personnel, which was coming not too far behind, came upon the accident, and Mr. Rancharan, who was the most critically injured, he was the one that was transported to the Corozal Community Hospital whilst the others remain unseen.
Wanted murder suspect Amin Cho has been detained and charged. The Guinea Grass resident was wanted for the 2017 murder of Pedro Paul, an elderly shopkeeper of August Pine Ridge. Back on June 15, 2017, Paul was inside his store in the village when he was ambushed and beaten by two men, including a minor. The 90-year-old man was injured to the head and body, his feet bound, a towel tied around his neck, and his mouth stuffed. Paul was later discovered by relatives who rushed him to the Northern Regional Hospital, but he died soon after. The minor was picked up in the village shortly after the murder, but Cho absconded. He was detained over the weekend and has since been charged for the crime of murder. Statutory Instrument 62 has brought into effect a new 2-month state of emergency on May 1st, and with it, a revised set of regulations to govern the movement of the citizenry during this period. The Belize Police Department has its hands full now that thousands of residents are back on the streets in their respective districts. Enforcing social distancing and the wearing of face masks are among the primary responsibilities of all police officers, aside from responding to major crimes. Commissioner Chester Williams reiterated earlier today that the department continues to do its part and implores the citizenry, as well as the business community, to adhere to the measures that have been put in place since Friday.
From a security standpoint, our efforts have to step up in terms of being able to deal with persons who are moving around. Yes, we know that with more businesses open, that will also allow more people to be on the streets because there are now more reasons to be on the streets. But that will not take away the responsibility from us, in that we still need to stop and question people as to where is it they're going. Also bear in mind that the cross-district, cross-community crossing is still not permissible. And so the checkpoints on the highways remain in place, and they too continue to question people who are using our highways. From a law enforcement standpoint, I must say that it has become more difficult for us because of the amount of persons now on the streets. But we continue to do the best we can with a view to be able to police the situation and ensure that those persons who are out maintain social distance and that they are wearing a mask. We also want to emphasize to the business owners the importance of making sure that they place necessary markings within and in front of their establishments, indicating the 6 feet social distance that their customers must maintain. And then we want to ask the customers to ensure that they adhere to those measures that they see being implemented by the business establishment they visit.
Over the extended weekend, as many as 62 persons were arrested and charged for various offenses related to the state of emergency. That total is a considerable reduction from previous weekends when persons were being booked by larger numbers. According to the commissioner, despite not charging anyone on the first day of the new state of emergency, he has observed that persons wearing masks aren't in full compliance of the law, since many are seen wearing the covering on their foreheads and chins.
A number of arrests were made over the weekend in respect to the state of emergency situation. On the 1st of May, when the new regulations came into force, I directed my officers that we were not going to make any arrests for persons who are not wearing masks, that would use that first day as a warning day. So for the first day, we were merely warning people because we tried to understand that it's a new norm for people and they need a little time to adjust. And so the first day, we just warned people. On the second day, then, we began to make arrests for not wearing the mask. And yes, indeed, a few persons were arrested. But may I say that driving through the city and even across the country, I have observed that a number of persons are wearing a forehead mask or a chin mask and not wearing a mouth and nose mask. The mask must be covering your mouth and your nose. It should not be on your forehead or on your chin. If it is on your forehead or chin, you are in violation of the law, and you will be arrested.
After the break, most businesses are now open. We'll tell you about those that remain closed under the state of emergency. New state of emergency amendments have been made to Statutory Instrument Number 65 of 2020, which allows for the reopening of a large number of businesses in various categories. The Attorney General, Michael Perifete, appeared on Ask the Experts webcast today to discuss the new amendments and what they mean for the public. Perifete outlines all the businesses that are not allowed by law to operate from 5 in the morning until 7 at night.
This is the law in terms of businesses, places of work. 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. 5 in the morning till 7 at night. Fuel stations, fuel depots, LPG suppliers, LPG depots and LPG distributors. Agro-processors, food manufacturers and factories and manufacturers of carbonated and other beverages including spirits, which is liquor and soft drink. Agricultural and aquaculture farms, shrimp farms, agricultural farms. Fishing for livelihood and sustenance, but not including sport fishing and leisure fishing. We still can't sport fish, we still can't leisure fish. We can only still fish for livelihood and sustenance. Waste disposal and sanitation companies and auxiliary personnel. Productive sector industries personnel and auxiliary workers, which is the production of drinkable water and agricultural workers. Markets for produce, fish and meat. Public transportation providers. Construction and construction sites. Local manufacturers like welders and carpenters and stuff like that. Bakeries and tortilla factories. Those are the businesses that can open from 5 in the morning to 7 at night.
Outside of those businesses, the amendments also make provisions for many other businesses to operate during this extended state of emergency. Those businesses are to operate from 8 in the morning through to 7 at night, and street vendors must operate from a private property and not on the streets. But there are some businesses that are still not allowed to open. Attorney General Michael Perifete explains.
Those businesses that I just said, those are the ones that can open 5 to 7. All other businesses that did not fall into that category, all other business that did not fall into that category that I just said, can now open from 8 in the morning till 7 at night. Schools remain closed, but school offices and can now open to collect fees or applications for next year, whatever administrative stuff they want to do. So those can open if they choose to. But remember, just like a convenience store, just like anything else, you must have on your mask, you must maintain social distancing of 6 feet apart from each person. Let's not forget that 24 hours a day, certain things can open. Food mills, sugar and citrus, production, oil production, port operations, public utilities and independent producers which provide energy to public utilities. These are the businesses and activities that remain closed. Casinos and gaming establishments, spas, which means especially the ladies are limited to manicure, pedicure, and hair. That's all you can do right now. As we said last week, no waxing, no massages, no facials, and the like. Gymnasiums, sporting complexes remain closed. Discotheques, bars, rum shops, and nightclubs remain closed. No street food vendors are allowed to operate on the street. You cannot put your taco stand on the street and sell your tacos on the street. If you have that kind of business, you have to prepare it on private property, in your yard or in your kitchen or your home, and people can then come, buy and take it away. But you cannot do any food activity on the street or in a public place.
As we reported last week, hotels and other places of accommodation can now open, but those with restaurants can only provide room service and takeout. Beauty salons and barbershops operate on appointments only. When it comes to other public events and different forms of social gatherings, the Attorney General says that those are still not allowed. Michael Parafit spoke on the topic of parties, religious gatherings, and other social activities.
Let me remind the public, for example, a private party, we include people from outside your house, that still can't happen, Recreational or competitive sporting events still can't happen. Wedding with more than 10 people still can't happen. Banquet, ball, reception still can't happen. Social event, concerts and stuff like that still can't happen. Any other ceremony of public worship in any facility, so the law does not allow for a church service to be held as yet. Funeral, 10 people or less only. If there are more than 10 people, it can't happen. Social clubs and fraternal orders and clubs still can't happen. So these things in the law remain there. They still cannot happen. Businesses are being opened up for people to go and purchase stuff that they need and for people to go to work. But other than that, things that are not necessary are not yet allowed in general.
In his presentation, the Attorney General shared some important reminders that the public must adhere to at all times. Parafit notes that the borders remain closed. The curfew is still in place. Masks are mandatory and social distancing is a must. When it comes to large workplaces, Parafit also says that they must ensure that the work setting is outfitted so that the employees adhere to the regulations, or that they implement a work-from-home strategy moving forward. All these measures, he says, may remain in place for a couple more weeks, so we must adhere to them.
The borders are still closed. You cannot enter or exit the country as per normal, and if you do so illegally, you will go to jail for 3 months in the first instance and a year for the second instance. You can't even pay a fine if you breach the border rules. The borders are still closed. Even though new laws are in place to make it even more relaxed, the curfew is still in place. Come 8 o'clock tonight, everything shuts down until 5 in the morning. Nothing changes that. Curfew for children still in place. Come 6 p.m. this evening, children have to be off the streets until 8 in the morning again. That has not changed. Masks at all times. As we start to move about more, as we start to do more things and interact more, everybody is required to wear a mask when you're in a public place or a public space. If you're in your car with people from your family, I guess you can not have to wear it in the car with your immediate family and people that you know and live with. But once you step out that car, you must have one if you're stepping out into a public place. We must maintain social distancing at all times. 6 feet apart, as we are doing right now in the studio, with your mask on. That does not change. That does not change. That remains in place. Employers, if you can have your employees work from home, have them work from home. Some employers will have no choice given the size of their establishments. If you're not big enough to hold all your employees 6 feet apart, then clearly some of them will have to work from home. You are still obligated to do that as an employer. As an employee, if you believe that you have issues with working at the place and you can perform from home, you have an obligation to convince your employer that you can do that. These things, what I'm mentioning here, I don't think we will get rid of these things right now. These are good things to remember, because I think that for the near future, especially for the next month or so, what I'm mentioning now will be the case. will be the case.
To wrap up the Attorney General's presentation when it comes to swimming at public pools, rivers, creeks, the sea, and other waterways, that is off limits. But if you are on a property that has its own swimming pool, then you are allowed to take a swim. Here's how Michael Perifeet responded to a question submitted during today's Ask the Expert segment.
This person wants to know, they live in a condo and there's a community pool at their at the residence. Are they allowed to swim there, considering they live in that condo?
But it's a private compound.
It's a private compound. They're all condos there.
Right.
They own and live in the condo.
Right.
In the compound. So are they allowed to use
I would
that
say
pool?
technically, since that entire compound is private property, they can swim there because it's private property for that condominium. That's the purpose of condominiums. However, we have to say, if you're going to jump in a pool where 10 different apartments are jumping in, you jump at your own risk. If it's a private pool, you can swim in it, even though it's still not advisable. But if it's a private pool, who can stop you? Because it's a private pool. But no public pools are allowed.
The pump price for diesel will finally go down tonight, but the decrease is not such a big one. At midnight, diesel drops by 36 cents to sell at $7.89 per gallon. But don't expect other decreases because the prices of premium and regular gasoline and kerosene will remain unchanged at $10.92, $7.26 and $5.43 respectively. As you know, the international prices had a historic drop and drove prices down by $2.97 on April 25th for regular fuel. When we come back, fire sweeps through a 4-bedroom house in Belize City. But first, robbers emptied the building.
Prepare your facilities and keep your employees and
There was a fire over the weekend that wiped out a man's house in Belize City. Dion Ferguson, a tourism worker from San Pedro, received a call just before 11 on Saturday night that his property in the city was on fire. But by the time the flames were put out, the property was already destroyed. Today, when we spoke with the homeowner, he was not sure what caused the fire, but says that his place was reportedly burglarized minutes before fire was seen inside. Here's that story.
Oh man, this is a huge loss, man, you know. But I know with the grace of God I will get back from this, right?
It's a big loss that Dion Ferguson is still processing today. His fully furnished house burnt down just before 11 o'clock on Saturday night in the set site area of Lake Independence in Belize City. A cell phone user captured the big flames as they engulfed the house that night. Inside, the charred remnants of appliances burnt through and through are scattered around. Today, Ferguson says he doesn't know what caused the blaze, but he was told that thieves broke inside and burglarized the place just before the fire started.
I get to understand that someone break in there and they stomp the door open and rob and look like they set a fire. I'm not really sure, right? Just from speculation I'm hearing. I can see stuff missing as well, and I could see everything burned down as well, I lost everything,
Ferguson resides in San Pedro where he works, so no one was inside on the night of the fire. He says that he recently built an addition to the 4-bedroom concrete house. That addition was to open a small business. The products for that business also went up in flames.
I was investing and working on it, if you notice it. You could see like new things, structures, I was investing in it. As I live in San Pedro, right? Live in San Pedro, this was a project I have here in the neighborhood, right? Doing something good for the future kids, right? So when I get a call from my aunt, like 11:15, staying in my house is on fire and thing, It's a shocking situation for me as well.
The house and contents are valued at over $150,000. Ferguson began to invest in the property since he was 18 years old. So despite the losses, he's motivated to rebuild.
Oh man, had a lot of stuff in there, a lot of value things and sentimental things from family as well. I've rebuilt. To be honest with you, I will rebuild, With the grace of God, I will rebuild from this.
Reporting for News 5, I'm Andrea Polanco.
If you'd like to help Ferguson rebuild, you can reach him at 614-3466 or via Facebook. A fire across the northern border at a dump site has been brought under control, but the smoke continues to billow, affecting residents of the area as well as of the Corozal district. According to online reports from Chetumal, the fire broke on Saturday, and by Sunday it had swept through 40% of the dump site. It is not known what caused the blaze, but the extreme high temperatures are suspected to be the source of fires sparking everywhere. 2 previous fires have been reported at the dump site in recent days, which have put a strain on resources in Athon P. Blanco. Enforcing that citizens maintain 6 feet of social distance is part of the police department's mandate during the state of emergency. In San Pedro this morning, dozens of passengers were seen bunched up together on a dock at a water taxi terminal. The issue clearly raises concerns of enforcement, and Commissioner of Police Chester Williams, who's scheduled to visit the island on Tuesday, has weighed in on the incident, threatening that failure to abide by the law will result in the shutting down of operations for the water taxi.
I just got a video a while ago which shows a number of persons coming off a vessel, and obviously social distance was not being maintained. And my message to them is to ensure that they adhere to social distance protocol, because the operators of these water ferry must ensure that they have the proper markings to indicate to their customers where they are to stand, maintaining social distance. And if it is that the persons are coming off the boat, then they too must coordinate how people come off the boat while maintaining social distance. And likewise, the people must ensure that they're wearing masks at all times. And if it is that they cannot comply with the legal requirements, then they're going to be arrested, and then we will stop the water taxi from running. because the health of our people come first.
Reports of officers abusing their authority during the state of emergency have gone down significantly since the Professional Standards Branch of the Belize Police Department has been actively investigating a number of cases. Commissioner Chester Williams has taken a no-nonsense approach in dealing with rogue cops, including recommendations for the termination of 3 officers who coerced 2 Belize City residents into performing a sexual act last month inside an abandoned building on Central American Boulevard.
We have seen a drastic reduction in the amount of abuse complaints, and I am only hoping that it continues to go down. I know that the police officers are policing in tough and stressful times, and they're human beings. At times they may get overzealous, they may overreact, and when that do occur, we have to see how we can strike a balance. But at the same time too, I ask the citizenry to please work with the police, because sometimes it is the citizenry who provoke some of these incidents to occur. It is no justification for the police. And as I said to the officers, that we are professional and we must always ensure that we act reasonably in dealing with any situation. And so if it is that we can work together, the police and the community, we'll surely rid ourselves of these issues of police abuse and misconducts.
Coming up after the break, Orange Walk is one of the districts with 0 reported cases of COVID-19. The mayor says residents adhered to the state of emergency measures.
Throughout this time of report with a global perspective.
After weeks of being under lockdown, Belizeans across the country get to move a bit more and return to work. There is a new normal, though. Everyone must wear a mask. Not wearing one in public is in direct conflict with the new laws of the state of emergency. Orange Walk has no reported cases of COVID-19, and as the hustle and bustle returned to the streets, everyone donned a mask today. Mayor Kevin Bernard says that since COVID-19 was confirmed, residents adhered to the rules attached to state of emergency regulations.
If you go in town right now, I can tell you that you will find 90-95% of the people wearing a mask. There's still one or two of those persons who may think they want to slip through the cracks, but all in all, you go to the shops, you go to the banks, you go to anywhere, you will see people wearing their masks. And I think what is also helping is that even the business establishments are now making it that responsibility on their customer to ensure that if you don't have a mask, we cannot serve you. And so that is important. I must say though that from the very beginning, COVID-19, the people of Orange Walk had taken it very seriously. And I think this is one of the reasons why there have been no spread here in Orange Walk. And in the entire district I must speak of. Because you have seen a lot of people hold back, they stay home as much as they needed to stay home. One person in the family going to the shop. So we have been adhering, and I think if we continue this way, we can slowly rid ourselves as a country, as a nation, from this virus.
As there is a softening of the regulations and the economy is beginning to crank up, town and city councils countrywide are trying to figure out how to keep financially stable. In Orange Walk, Mayor Kevin Bernard did not fire any of the council's employees, but says that while businesses reopen, the council will remain in a financial chokehold. According to Bernard, municipalities across the country will face the slow season, and it will be more difficult for councils to meet operational costs unless central government lends a helping hand.
I know that there have been some municipalities that have said that they would have had to release people. But the reality is on the ground, Hipólito, that currently we are asking the government, I said this before, we've asked the government to look at support to the municipalities. Because while we may open back our doors, that doesn't guarantee that people have the money to go and pay their property taxes the way we would want them to pay their property taxes, or there are some small businesses that has already suffered tremendously, and so these people may not be able to reopen their shops. So that's a loss in trade revenue for us. Our peddlers are taking a licking. They have not been able to come out still. And so those street side vendors, the council cannot collect those peddlers' fees. And so there's still a lot of tough times for us. And normally, we go through that lull period every year between May, June, July, August, September. And so we're going to face some tough times. So I understand the question. And like I said, we have been doing 1 week at a time, looking at it. I just earlier spoke to my administrator, and we said, you know what, we have projection that we can look at 3 weeks from here. But what will happen after that? We've been telling the government, help us with a guarantee, bank guarantee overdraft facility, allow us to assist, to access duty-free fuel. All those things have felt on deaf ears. And I'm speaking just for the Orange Walk Town Council. I'm speaking for all of us at all the mayor's level at 9 municipalities across this country.
And that's the news. Don't forget that tonight's broadcast is available in both text and streaming video at channel5belize.com. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/News5Live. I'm Marlene Cuellar. Thanks for joining us, and from all of us here at News 5, please remember, wash your hands, keep your social distance, stay home, and stay safe. Good night.